Alright, we got Kelly, Kyle, and Steve.
And we've been playing a crap ton of the new Elden Ring DLC. A lot of stuff to like and a few things to dislike, so let's just jump right in.
Like the world design, the map design.
Mm-hmm.
You come into it right away, and it does have a big grandiose feel, which is kind of nice. It's not as colorful as the base game, at least not initially. The first, I don't know, few sections of the world that you discover are kind of bleak, burnt down, a lot of darks and grays. But it does get brighter as you get down like the coastline, the blue flower area, the red flower area, even in Bale's mountain area, it's got a different color pattern. Yeah, all lightning and stuff. But it does feel like it's a lost world. I actually saw a map on, I think it was probably Reddit or something, but I don't know if it's confirmed, but it does look like the world in the DLC was part of the base game world, and it just kind of got lost somewhere. Like it belongs on the map of the base game, which is kind of cool, but it
got taken out and then replaced
like
with
that,
water type thing. I think it's a fun idea. I'm not sure. I don't think it's been confirmed or anything, but I like the idea of it being real. And when it comes to any of the lore stuff with Elden Ring, if I like the idea of it and it hasn't been unconfirmed, that's good enough for me. I feel like that's what you're supposed to do with the storyline in these games. I guess one problem I have with it is that some of those areas are a bit more open, which I think can work well from a visual component. Like those areas that I just mentioned, along with the finger areas with the fingers popping out of the ground. They're kind of huge open plains with not a lot for you to actually do as the character. And when you know where to go, that's not really a problem. So it's not really as much of a problem for your second playthrough or your third one when you're just getting more of the atmosphere of how big the world is. But when you're going through your first time and you're looking for every little secret that could be hiding in those spots, and I'd say it's similar with the bluegrass and the redgrass area, it's not the most fun areas to explore. Even compared to the base game, where some people will still say that the base game is like a big empty area, I very much disagree. There's tons of interesting things that you can see from pretty much every spot, and you can kind of find the dungeons and towers that you want to go to in the base game, and there's less of that here in some of those open areas. It's more empty than the base game.
Sure.
I personally found the scale to be really impressive for a DLC. And the fact that some of it was empty, I kind of expected. The finger world that you mentioned earlier being barren, in a way, I was kind of, on my first playthrough, happy that was empty. When I got to the finger world, essentially, I thought is, if that place is this annoying to explore, it can't be worth exploring, and I'll look it up later. Because I didn't waste my time turning every stone in that area because
it's a good idea. Yeah. Like you'll look stuff up once you beat it anyways, so it's just like I'll just miss whatever's there. Or Kelly will tell me if there's something.
I'm happy to miss anything here, or I'll rely on Kelly to say it wasn't worth it.
Right.
I found the range of biomes to actually be pretty good for the scale of the DLC. Going to a nice tropical green to the blues. I thought it was a good variety.
Or I'd say green grass, bluegrass, red grass areas.
As Miyazaki intended.
Yeah.
How'd you guys feel about the verticality of it?
I do. That's the one note I have.
That's a pro and con.
Yes, that's what I put in the same spot. That's funny. But the map pieces should be in places where you can get them more easily. Outside of that, I like the way the map is set up, where there are these kind of paths that give you a whole new big area. Because it kind of reminds me of Dark Souls' world. Like, you can find, I guess, if you go into a tree, you can find a tree world, and then you can find an underground place with a beach and a dragon. It kind of keeps on opening up. So I actually like the way the world map is set up, where there are these, almost tunnels you have to take to get to one huge section of the map. They're like a funnel. I think that's fine, and sometimes there's multiple funnels, which is great too, that are both hidden, so you can find your own way to get to that spot. You have to explore. I like that. But man, did I want those map pieces, and trying to get to those map pieces on my first playthrough while I was trying to explore that stuff, it wasn't great.
It was the way they teased the map pieces, because you saw them they're right next to where you think you should be able to go and you can't. It's you sons of...
You're right that it makes you explore, and it's a good concept where you keep going down, opens up all the stuff you just said, but my problem, and it's probably just that I'm not as good at exploring this kind of shit as you are, but a lot of the bigger sections of the map would have been very easily missed if I didn't have either you guys or the internet as a resource.
And I think
very
that that's
hard
a
for me to
good
find.
thing. I want stuff to be missable, I guess, without using a guide. And some of the stuff that I missed was just like, oh, how didn't I find that? How didn't I find that spot that leads to the MP talisman? Like, we all missed it, and it's a super easy path that I should have just followed and took.
I do have a note then on the quality of, like, we're comparing this to the original game's dungeons and content.
Sure.
And I think the actual dungeons in this game were more fun to explore, by
Yes.
percentage at least of dungeons.
They are
than the
far
base
bigger.
game.
More diverse overall. I didn't like that they still reused the same elevator for the catacombs. But
Yeah,
outside
but
of that, the catacombs were more fun.
Yeah, that's what I was
Very.
going to say. I enjoyed exploring the catacombs more in this one.
Right.
Mm.
The multi-layered aspects of them was a bit more fun too, with checkpoints in between.
Like, I mean, there were legacy dungeon-wise in the base game. There were some good ones if you go legacy-wise, and this one still has some solid ones too. So,
Right.
smaller ones.
They're all on a smaller scale, but there are still plenty
Right.
of fun ones too. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, Ladle Capital from the base game. Dear God, that was like shock upon shock for scale.
I think another one that people don't bring up all the time because they just want to be done with the game, but also Tornado City's a huge, like with
Oh,
multi-paths
Fairness, yeah.
everywhere.
It's bigger
And-
than you would think it would be.
Halleck
Tree.
Tree Roots.
Halleck Tree,
That's enormous.
It's enormous, a lot of different paths everywhere, a lot of stuff to explore. So the base game's loaded with it, and I would say this, while they're smaller in scale, it still does a good job of that. Even the kind of the main one that you do where you fight Mesmer, I'd say that that's pretty well done
Shadowkeep.
too. It is interesting how you have to go through the back way to get to the top, and how you have to get
At
there.
least to get to like Gowl and all that. You can get to the top from the front. You just can't get to half the side bosses unless you go through the back. And the back can also get you to the top. So the front way is the only way that actually will cut you off from something.
Right. But I did like, from a lore perspective, not that we're huge lore people, but I did like that it gave more information on America, because there's a lot of that just didn't make sense, and there's a lot of it that still doesn't make sense, but it makes slightly more sense, and that's better. Didn't like that we didn't get more information on, like, Melina or whatever, the chick that levels you up in the beginning of the game that works as your maiden. There's not really
I know,
much
I
there.
hardly even touched on her. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
they assume that she might be already like gone in your playthrough,
Sure.
but they still could cover some background on her. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think she died in this world if she's like the burning chick from the trailer. So it's like, let her see her body and then pick up an item that relates to her or something. Because
Yeah, that'd be a nice touch.
probably Mesmer's twin too, with the butterflies and all that stuff. So there's like a little bit of information there, but there's not enough for a character that needed more in the base game. So it would have been nice to have more there.
Right.
Maybe
And
they're intentionally keeping it vague because she's like the god of gods or whatever, so they want to keep it interesting and mysterious.
Certainly doesn't
it
appear
makes sense
that
if they
way
have a
based on
sequel
the
in
lore.
mind.
I think the sequel, if anything, is going to be, no matter what ending you choose, the world is still being corrupted by Godfrey or whatever, the one that is bodiless, and you see his body everywhere.
Right.
So I think it's more dark and bloodborne-y if there's a sequel, but that's just unrelated. I will
Elden
say
Ring 2.
another
Ring
positive that's a hot take. I think Steve might agree with me here too. I really like the shadow fragments for a level up system. Do I think it might have been maybe a little bit better if they just did it through bosses? Sure, I think I would have liked that too. But I don't hate the way that they do it now, where it encourages you to explore all these different spots to find them. I don't think they needed to have a perfect amount to reach the max level either. So there's like a few little nitpicky things I think I would do. But outside of that, I liked having another level up system. I did say before this DLC came out that they need to include something, because the standard level up system in the game would not have been enough to feel like you're progressing in like such a big DLC, because at that point you're already at like 140, 150, 130. I don't know what level people are at. I'm normally at 150. So the levels up that you get in the DLC aren't quite as meaningful. So it wouldn't have been enough by itself. And with this new tree or shadow tree fragment system, you really can go back to those beginning bosses in the beginning of the DLC and just wipe the floor with them. And I personally like RPG mechanics in these Souls games. It's why my favorite ones were like the Dark Souls one, and the ones that focus more on that. Now they're quite a Sekiro type game. So for me personally, that enjoys those aspects in these games, in the exploring, encouraging that, I enjoyed the Shadow Tree system that they had in place.
Yeah, I'm a little bit mixed on it. Mostly good. Mainly because it resets your character, so you can't go in there super over-leveled and overpowered and just run through the entire DLC. You kind of have to progress with the fragments to get
That
stronger
was
and be...
never an option. Some people say peace was never an option. It's never an option that you were going to run over the DLC. It was either you have a level up system or they're all just stronger. I don't know if you know how these developers work, but...
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was just the mechanic they chose, was the level up system, so that you couldn't just walk in with an overpowered character.
Right.
But it was nice. I do think it was an odd choice, hiding shadow fragments and glowing pots.
Yeah, I don't
weird.
think that's great.
But, just more, instead of that, like you were saying, just more either bosses or like the hippos that drop the fragments. That's a perfect idea.
Sure, you can
Find
see them
these
far
strong enemies
away,
and beat them,
when you're running
yeah.
into them. Yeah, I think that works better than the pots for sure. But
Yep.
once you know where the pots are, there's not that many of them, so it's not
Sure.
too bad. At least for alternate or secondary playthroughs. On a similar note to that, unless Steve has something to say.
I do, actually. I thought that the fact that they added a DLC progression in and of itself was great, because they didn't have to, and a lot of times they didn't. Most of the time, and most games don't
The other
give
Souls
you that.
games didn't,
So the sheer fact that they did, I thought, was actually just good enough. And yeah, they could have did it where you just got, they could have actually, I thought, crippled you, gave you like you're an invader in this world, gave you half your flask, you just slowly working your way up. They could have made it so that you got different ways of upgrading your stuff that only applies to Shadowlands, but why? It's just effort. The trees work, and
Right.
it's good enough.
Yep.
So on a related note, outside of the final boss, where I'm sure we'll talk about that very soon here, and it might take up a good portion of this video, but outside of the final boss, I actually thought the difficulty for the entire DLC was balanced in a fun way. Now, I guess you should know that we don't have qualms using summons. I'll show footage on here of me not using summons and beating difficult bosses. It's not like I can't do it. It's just the people here that are making this video, we don't care if we use summons as long as we're having a fun time. It's just who we are. I think that everyone should kind of play that way. I don't even think the other Souls games are. I think this game with summons is as hard as like the Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1, because I played those first, and I just don't think that they're that difficult. I think that these games have been getting harder and harder. But I thought that it was a good difficulty level, maybe because of the leveling up system that allows you to overlevel, but I never thought that any of the bosses until the final boss of the DLC were too hard, which is something I was very worried about going in, because I remember thinking my first time through Elden Ring, like, shit, this boss is a pain, and then this boss is a pain. Now I was using a holy weapon, and I didn't know that they're all resistant to holy damage. But every single boss that I was facing on that final gauntlet of bosses was just a pain. And I didn't feel that with the DLC at all until the final one.
I did run into a hiccup or two on a boss. You know how I handle with Commander Gay-Ass, but...
I mean, I ran into a hiccup with him. He took me like an hour and a half my first time, probably, but I learned how to do the fight, and I didn't think it was that bad throughout, outside of the charge attack, of course, but that's the
Yeah, I think everyone will universally agree that charge attack is something that needs to be fixed. Yeah, they fixed that, and I actually think I'm fine with him. Like,
even if it's
I actually
not your
like him
boss.
conceptually. He's just a guy I struggle with more than the other ones.
Sure.
Aside from the final boss, of course.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some of the standout bosses that I remembered and had a good time fighting. I got Gaius on there. Romina, the centipede chick or whatever.
Her.
Yeah.
Curse you, Bale!
Bale, of course, is on there. Mesmer was a good fight. Wasn't amazing, but it was still fun, and it was obviously the main villain of the DLC, or so you think.
Mm-hmm.
But as much as we will talk about Radahn, and I'm sure we will, I'm going to remember how fucking hard it was and how much I had to cheese my cosplay character just to get the win. So it's, if nothing else, the experience was memorable, and I finally feel good that I killed him. Like, goddamn, finally, yes. And there's more to say on that for sure. My actual words that I wrote down for Radahn were
Fuck
fucking
you.
fucking goddamn slut whore piece of shit, Radahn.
You stole
So-
Mikella from me. Mikella.
Yeah, I wanted Mikola. No. I don't even know if we want to talk about the lore here. It's just a weird thing. Why are brothers consorts with brother? It doesn't matter. The fight itself was... it's just so punishing in a way that doesn't have to be. Like, I already said I had to cheese my character just to get the win. I kind of feel like you shouldn't have to do that. Maybe I just suck. That's
Especially
fine.
for how much time you put into him, you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. I'm sure I could just get good nerd and do it without doing that, but goddamn, that would have taken
I will
way
admit,
longer.
I'm pretty good at the fight, and it still revolves around, at least where I'm at, some level of luck with the attacks he uses and when he decides to use them. Like, I have footage of me beating him with parries, and I have footage of me beating him just rolling. I've done it on multiple different characters. It's usually not something I'm able to do in one try, and I know the fight very well. The 2 cross/slash attack is garbage. I don't... If I've dodged it, it's pure luck, and it happens like 1% of the time that he uses the attack. That attack is just, yeah, it's straight garbage. And then there's plenty of other attacks that he does in the second phase, where he's shooting those beams everywhere, and your character will get hit by a beam, and then you can't dodge the next attack, and it's hard to see what it is he's doing, even if he's using similar versions of the same attack that he uses in the first one. And they all punish you so much. Every single attack he does so much damage, where it's like, it's hard to even learn the second phase when you're trying to do it the first time, because he just hits you, and you'll just die so quickly. And along with that, if you are someone that uses summons, you only have one option. Every other summon outside of Mimic is not tanky enough to beat him. You can beat him with like Telu.
Is that the Golem?
But you can only beat him with Telu if you're healing Telu the entire time. Otherwise, a Mimic is far tankier than Telu if you're not healing your own summon. So really, if you don't plan on healing your summon, you would really just use Mimic. It's really your only option. And he is far easier with a shield than rolling. That should take note. But a lot of people, like, we care about our characters playing a certain way. It's like, that's what that character is. I have shield characters too. Like, I like using shields, but I like to diversify how I play all these characters. I spend a lot of time on this game. And to have one play style be monumentally easier than no shield, it just doesn't. Now, I'm okay with shields being easier. It's just the monumental part is the real hanger here, where it's so much easier when you use a shield than when you're just rolling around.
Yeah.
My first playthrough was dual whips, and I switched to a shield poke, as I was not going to waste my time for another hour on that damn fight. Just wanted to get done with it, and that's not a way you want to finish your DLC, is you just want to get done with it. And, but yeah, shield poked him, trivialized it, and then I went back for more challenging runs later, and I'm proud of those, even if some of them are still cheesy in their own way, but they're my own way. All in all, though, I found the fight to be just a little bit lame, not just because how it played out, but I also found it lame conceptually. Radahn was just, I didn't need to fight Radahn again, first of all. I felt like once was enough, but I was kind of looking forward to just someone new.
The story stuff doesn't bug me that much. I'm fine with
it. Doesn't,
Radahn.
but it's just for a big reveal. It's like, and it's Radahn again.
You're right.
For me, that wasn't very exciting. I was hoping for something a little different. Moving more into his combat itself. Personally, I just wish he would fuck off for like 2 seconds every now and then. Like, he doesn't have to stand there and let you hit him. Just stay back for a bit. Let you breathe, especially in that second phase.
Super rarely. He'll just walk.
Right, because he just chains everything together nonstop, like a roided out jock on PCP. Just go, next attack, go. You ready for this one?
Meteor slam.
Like, you realize that freaking Melania, or whatever her name is, she just kind of walks all confident, like, like she's too good to fight you seriously, and then you're like, you're the biggest threat of my life and you need to die.
You're right.
Kind of a pansy way to fight Radahn.
Well, he's protecting his lover.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his brother lover.
That he's probably being
brother?
hypnotized to love because he's reborn that way. But
Right?
Yeah, I
But
don't
I just
mind.
It's a spectacle of a fight, and I'd just like him to like let you appreciate the spectacle. The holy lights and everything that blind your screen so you can't see anything wouldn't be so bad if he gave you a second to like, you know, let your eyes adjust again.
I think I mentioned this to you guys before, but I like Radahn as the final boss because he got a lot of love in base game, and I kind of think I like that they brought him back and give him, you know, a bigger role in the story. You know, he's the final boss of this DLC. It's kind of cool. Maybe it cheapens his name now a little bit because of how bullshit this fight is, but I don't know. I like it as a concept.
it should be a hard fight, keep in mind. It should be a fight that takes you, who knows, 100 tries. But after you have 100 tries down, you should know the fight well enough where you're good. Like, you never have a problem with that fight again because you just learned how to dodge everything. But that's not what he is. He's got the cross slash that's going to hit you every time if you're not using a shield. Like, and he's got other attacks that are also just, like, inopportune times. If he uses it, it's going to hit you too. So, like,
My favorite is the / cross / second phase where there's also holy light that comes out of the fucking ground after he uses it. It's like, come on, leave me alone.
I will say I think I had a fun time with all of the NPCs and the NPC fight that happened right before the Radahn one. If you actually go through all their story stuff, it's weird that it makes the boss harder. that was a weird choice, but it is really cool just hearing them all talk to each other. You can't really understand what they're saying because you're trying to fight and there's so many people talking at the same time. But like them talking shit to each other while there's this huge battle of people on your side and people on their side. I don't know if Kyle noticed that, but yeah, you can get people on your side. So, because he only did it once.
I didn't even put any thought into the NPCs in my first playthrough. I just wanted to.
Sure, play it blind. Yeah, that makes sense too. But it's not too hard to follow the quest once you kind of know how to do it. It's certainly easier than the base game. And I think the NPCs have just enough to them where they're relatively simple characters, but you really you're not asking for more. It's not like Melania's situation where you're like, what? Like, who is this? You don't have any of that problem with these NPCs. You understand who they are, and you either like them or you don't like them type thing.
I think percentage-wise, too, they're very likable. Because I'd find, like, Ansbach is just... I think he's literally the coolest NPC that ever existed in Elden Ring. Because he's just so, like, just grizzled and badass.
He's the wise guy. Yeah, he's like the old mentor type guy, but...
just knows his shit. And then when you fight him with Lita, like everyone would, he's just like, wow, this guy is tough.
Right. Yeah, they should
I
put
like
those...
Ansbach.
They should put those NPCs in the Radahn room. That could also help fix that fight.
Oh yeah, so that they don't scale them when you use them.
Yep.
It's more of a fun team effort.
Because they actually talk in that fight too, and there's a few other ones.
Although Radahn wouldn't give you a second to even click on the sign. Slapping the sign, standing over it, like, puts his foot on top of it,
teabagging it.
And I don't think other people would complain that never summon because they wouldn't summon anyway. So I think that would just be a good choice.
That would be nice.
But my con to the NPCs though is like, come on, Elden Ring, do they all have to die again?
Oh yeah.
Is that just what we do?
I just expect
it's on brand.
Yeah.
I expect it, but like, surprise me. Let one live. Let me pick one.
I like a lot of the new weapons that you get in the DLC. Of course, I would assumingly like that. One of my new favorite weapons is, unlike that chick character, was the dancing blade. Just how much damage you can do if you get time to attack. It's awesome. And then there's quite a few more other ones that are just really cool. But a little bit to the negative to that too is they don't seem like they're balanced quite as well as they could be for a DLC that took 2 years.
My thought on the weapons too, I thought they were very generous with the variety of weapons that they gave. I was very happy with that. I hear people online complain like, oh, they offered like 8 new types of weapons, but they only put like 1 or 2 of each type. Like, the fact that they offered 8 new types of weapons, I thought was that's more than I ever thought they'd do. Mm-hmm. So I was like, granted, some could be better. The throwing knife, obviously, everyone wishes was better because it's.
I think the throwing weapons need to just do more damage. Definitely.
They do, because I definitely played with them. Even the best one,
they should do the same amount of damage Yeah, the same amount of damage as a normal charged R2. Because, sure, you get the range, but, like, I don't know, you're at the end of the game. And every enemy just can run up to you like Radahn anyways. Like, at least very close to a normal charged R2. Maybe the same amount of damage, but it doesn't do the same amount of stance breaking. That could work.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. Just knock down the poise damage a bit, but give it the full damage. But yeah, I was very happy with the weapons and things. I was happy to find them all. I didn't use as many of the new ones as like the martial arts, the claws, like they're there, but I actually prefer fists, oddly enough, over both of those, which is sad. But either way, I'm just happy they're there.
But it does suck being like, ooh, I like this weapon, I want to theme a character around it. Yeah, but I have to go all the way through Mogwin and then into the DLC just to get this thing.
Trading
I
helps
have
with
a note
that.
on that
Trading
too.
helps, yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, I wish there was earlier access. I have thoughts on how they could have done that.
Right, and that's something I kind of liked about previous Souls game DLC. Like the Bloodborne one, you can get pretty early on. Actually, you can get in there, and I was worried about this one when he kind of knew where the DLC would be. It's like, yeah, you can technically get there early, but then you'd also have to beat Radahn, and beating that boss, it's not really an early thing. So really, if you're gonna play as an entire character, you kind of have to use co-op.
For like just another way that they could have just let you access it early, or at least access some stuff early, is to either just open up a new shop in the base game where you can actually buy some of the new types of weapons, at least like a base form of them, or just simply, give you another way to get there without killing Radahn and Mohg, but simply have the Shadow Keep sealed off. Because if you think about it, if you seal off the Shadow Keep, it really doesn't spoil anything for story until Mohg and Radahn are dead. Like a little bit of foresight they could have gave you just a way to get to exploring the DLC like right away, more or less, and enjoying yourself. And yeah, you'd get access to some higher end stuff, but yeah, you can get access to some higher end stuff really pretty quick in the base game too.
Yeah.
Me and you are on kind of the same page here, Steve. I like that there's a nice variety of not just new weapons of the same type, but new types of weapons, different ways to explore combat, and I love that. Not just the weapons, but the armors, the crafting. There's not a whole lot of crafting. A lot of it is pots and meats and shit like that. But even like the perfume bottles as a weapon, there's a lot of additional content in this DLC for creative characters / RPG elements. It adds to the already impressive replay value of this game. So I think that's a huge positive for me.
Right.
It just makes me excited to keep playing the game, even though I've played so much of it already, and that's really what you want out of an RPG in general. But if you're gonna add a DLC onto something that's already massive and already has that replay value, adding more to it is just a plus. It's a good thing to do.
Side note, FP Regen Talisman. That was actually one of the few things I wanted in the DLC.
Right, that was one of the only things we said we wanted in the DLC that we actually got. So I guess if you had to list any of them, Steve might have rated it pretty high up there, and he got his wish list. Mine would have been like a different way to buy consumable items to make crafting better. We didn't get that. But hey, not everyone gets their Christmas list presents.
No. Oh, I guess I completely skipped over the crack tiers that you get because I didn't kill any of the big lava guys.
They're too tanky. Maybe let them die in one crit because they still take a while. And once you know how to crit them once, you've done enough to learn how to fight them, and you've had your fun. Making them most of the time take two it just takes too long. It's just too time consuming for those fights that there's multiple of.
And there are a lot of them too.
Right.
They didn't skimp on furnace golems. They're freaking everywhere.
I love seeing them walk around the map. That's really cool. But yeah, fighting them, it's relatively easy to do for the most part, but it's just time consuming.
Time consuming. Yeah. It shouldn't feel tedious, and it feels tedious.
It feels Titus from Final Fantasy X.
Titus.
Going back to crafting a little bit, crafting consumables like Golden Vow is a nice workaround for a character that is not faith-based. You can kind of get a buff just by using a little bit of FP instead of having to level up faith and get a seal.
Right.
I didn't mind putting Golden Vow on a dagger for just flip into it to use it because it is an Ash of War as well.
That's true.
But the consumable is a slightly better version of the dagger version, so there you go.
Yeah, I think that's cool. I never really used the spell, just because it was too much buffs for me to handle. I like one buff, usually maximum. Or
I
two.
think most people these days, there's only a few that like actually stick. It's Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, and
Crabs.
then usually you're a big crab guy. Um, but then either like those two are the staples, and then you can usually get some sort of
Weapon buff too,
incant.
if you
Yeah,
want it.
that buffs your weapon. That's usually like the main thing that people do if they're going a buff route.
Well, also they go a little kooky too sometimes and poison themselves and then bleed themselves down to lower
Right,
things.
right,
Like,
right,
try to get all their
right.
talismans to proc. Like
Yeah.
that's when it's getting just stupid.
It's silly.
We did talk about some of the bigger, more empty areas. One place that in particular you got to mention is the Evil Woods place, where you don't get the horse. It takes a while to run through there, even when you know where you're going. If
I appreciated the
I don't-
atmosphere.
if the map was
Yeah.
smaller, it would be a pro. Like, it's
Yeah,
not
if you just made it smaller.
It just takes too long to run through.
Tidus. And it is fun
Right,
learning
yes.
that you can parry and kill those things.
Right, that is cool. And then the horse added to the final boss fight that they did the same time as the DLC does make it a bit more fun. I wasn't sure if it would because like I liked dodging the ring attacks on foot. You get a little bit less of that on the horse, but you improve so many other components of it. So I guess I was wrong if I said that adding a horse wouldn't entirely work. Because it is still, I'd say it's a bit more fun now than it was. And honestly, it makes Elden Beast one of the better boss fights in the game.
Yeah, because it just takes away that whole catch-up run time, where it's like, okay,
Right.
I can get him without running out of stamina, and we can get
It-
back into the action.
Maybe you lose
Right.
a little bit for the dodging attacks that you'd normally have to dodge on foot, but what you lose, you gain more. So,
I thought there was a decent assortment of new enemies. I thought there could be more. There was quite a few that just felt
Fair.
like reskins. A lot of just, your basic soldier type shit, or your dogs, or your birds. They could have done a little bit better with that, but
grab
they still have
flies.
they still have your unique kind of standouts, like the dual chakram dude that is the first hard enemy that you reach,
Oh,
like
I
that
hate
you
that
run
guy.
into. I hate him so much, but he's your first
Aesthetically
introduction.
and style, he's got a good look for him, but he
I
is a
wouldn't hate
fucker.
him. Make me get 8,000 souls from killing one of those guys, or 5,000. I don't know, just something not freaking like offensive, like 1,400 or 500. I get 1,400 for killing a shadow guy that's sitting there crying in the corner. Like, don't do that. It's so stupid. But if they gave him the right amount of runes, he'd just be annoying to fight, and I wouldn't hate him quite as much. But he's just one of those
Because
few
at least they're
examples.
acknowledging that he's supposed to be hard.
Yeah, the way they handle it with the runes.
You beat
on
a
those guys.
pushover.
Yeah, it's like bullshit.
Now I played the DLC with a dual scimitar character, dual falchion technically. So my poise already, or my stance break ability, is already low. But holy fuck, goddamn, if that was not a consistent problem with like just enemies, not bosses, but just enemies. The fucking the beastmen.
No one can knock
the-
those down, though.
The stupid fire mage, battle mage people thing, whatever those are. Those
Yeah, it
hardly
helps
ever
to have
stance break.
something that knocks those down. I'll say that.
Like goddamn.
Those guys are a pain if you can't knock them down.
It's like I really just had to rush, try to get procs on my weapons. Hopefully that would just rip the health off quick enough. But I was not able to poise break or stance break anything hardly. That was any of the harder enemies I really struggled with.
Yeah, I think you'll find different characters are far easier. Mainly with the the fire magic guys. If you have anything that knocks them down, you can just kind of spam
Anything
Ash
strong
of
enough to
Wars.
make him flinch.
Yeah, Ash of
Yeah, or
Wars
good
over and
Ashes of
over.
War.
Right.
So that
And
will
again,
help with those guys. And the only guys that make the Beastmen easy are like magic characters where you can attack at a distance.
Right,
Yeah.
Night Comet, just die.
Yeah. Because those guys do not stun from anything, so you just want to kill them before they get to you.
I thought the stone golems were a better way to handle that, because at least there's a trick to it. You gotta attack the back or whatever.
Just
You have
because
to
they were
kinda
broken
chain
half the
them.
time.
Yeah, there's also, I did notice there's quite a few weapons, and we're playing this before there's a patch. Hopefully there's a patch tonight or tomorrow. I don't know, we want it as soon as possible. But there are some weapons that just don't do crit damage, even though you have them in crit mode and you hit them. I don't know why that's a thing. And those guys are definitely kind of really annoying unless you do a cycle where you're knocking them down as soon as they get back up.
They did a really nice job adding the somber or the ancients, like all the highest
Oh
level
yeah, a
up
lot of
material.
full upgrade materials. Yeah, that's cool. I
Yeah.
like those.
So as you're getting new weapons and you want to play these new weapons, you're not kind of stuck with well, I can't max them out because I already used all my shit. They're giving you the option to do that. So
Yeah.
that was a good job.
Just things that would have been nice to see is, at least in the DLC area, a seamless co-op throughout it.
Yeah,
Just
of
would have
course
been
we'd
kind of
want
fun.
that.
Play
Or a
with your
horde
buddy.
mode. You know, we're
Yeah.
asking for that too.
Board mode was on there, yep. Renewable consumables we've discussed, or just buy a purchasable consumables
Yeah,
even. Like,
not a
just,
grade up something that's better than the base game.
Right, just
And
a
they
little
have
notch up there.
rope, I guess you can buy now.
Yeah, like that was like the only thing they really added that to the base game. Like, I would like it to buy all the consumables at least.
Right.
That'd be a small step. I would have loved to, like me personally, and maybe some of the cosplayers out there would love some dye, like some actual clothes dye,
That was
armor
never
dye.
gonna happen in this DLC.
No, it wasn't. But it just seems like it'd be so
It was
easy
never
to do.
an option.
Just add a dye guy. And you could pick all the flowers, and he'll like, oh, that's a yellow, or that's a Michaela flower. That'll give you yellow dyes or gold dyes. It's like you can use consumables to make dyes, and all of us cosplayers would love it. I could mix and match my armors and make some good stuff. In interest too of a new DLC, would have been nice to have more profiles.
Yeah,
know,
I
just-
would have liked that too, but
So you don't have to
whole-
delete your old guys. Yeah. We got horde modes. Alternate base game endings I would have liked. You know, just so the DLC can actually affect another way to end the game.
definitely would have been better. if
Or
they added
bypass burning the tree, especially.
more stuff to the base game would have been an improvement over nothing. Definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
More connections.
Because I feel like when I beat the DLC and I beat Radahn and go through all that frustration, I'm left with, what, do I just go back to the base game now? Like, I feel like it didn't matter, really.
No.
Like, everything in that side world.
It didn't, and I don't know. You look at like the DLC for Dark Souls 1, where you can meet Sif, and he at least it's just an extra cutscene where you still fight him and you still have to, but he feels bad about it. Like that adds quite a bit more, and there's nothing
Right.
like that here.
I just wouldn't have minded a little town. I know it'll
Right.
never be in a Dark Souls game, but damn it, just a little town. Make it feel like a lived-in world somewhere that ain't always everyone wants to kill themselves. Better a cutscene at the end of the game, I wouldn't have minded at least. If you're gonna
Yeah.
beat the DLC, give me
A
like
little bit.
at least a DLC ending, not just Michaela talking to himself. That would have been like just something to make my ending, like the whole journey, just feel like, yeah, I reached my goal.
So overall, this is a great addition to an already wonderful experience. I think there's a lot to be gained. It's a very sizable addition with a lot of weapons, armors, talismans, etc. to use that expands that create a character / RPG feel that this game already excels at. We already talked about the fragments and the revere dash mechanic. I think that does successfully serve as a soft reset for a character to make the DLC feel fresh. And it was just a well done, not perfect, nothing ever is, but a nicely done DLC experience overall, I would say.
Yep, I'd say it's a great addition to a great game. I'd say if they do tune this up a little bit, it's close to it, because my favorite game before this was Dark Souls 1. And the Ashes of War that you get with Elden Ring make returning to Dark Souls 1 a little bit harder, because like having all those different Ashes of War in your weapons is really, really cool to me. So there's certainly aspects of Elden Ring that I don't like as much as Dark Souls 1, but the positives are close to outweighing it. This is close to being my favorite game of all time, if it's not already. So it's just nice to have more content when it comes down to that. And I think a lot of the bosses are still really fun. I think the DLC is really fair and fun to play through. The dungeons are good. It's just more good content, more new weapons. It's difficult to complain about that as an overall package with a game that's already so good.
DLC was worth every penny to me. Like, I have no regrets with that purchase. I'd recommend it to anyone who wants to play Elden Ring to get the DLC. It was a good buy.
And
Yes.
that's what we got. I believe we'll probably be coming out with more videos if we're not lazy for Elden Ring. We are pretty lazy though, so it's very possible we won't. But
True.
feel free to check out some of our other videos. It's just us having a laugh playing some other old classic games. If you don't like it, stop watching them. That works too. But if you do like it,
Hey.
feel free to stick around. and you might enjoy yourself. Who knows? Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Later.
Tater.